All right, I don't see anyone else raising their hand or seeing.
One online.
Oh, online. Oh, Steve Lonhart.
Steve
Okay.
Lonhart.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Steve Lonhart. I'm a research ecologist with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and I work very closely with the department staff in doing monitoring at Tanker Reef. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of points. Number one, the work at Tanker Reef, as you all know, is part of a regulatory change, is not part of a scientifically designed experiment. So for folks to refer to it as an experiment, that might be okay in the sense of we're doing something that we haven't done before, but it wasn't designed that way. It's not funded that way because there is no funding. So the agency scientists who are doing work in collaboration with Keith and in collaboration with Reef Check California are doing monitoring of the regulatory change to determine if we can learn some lessons from the work that's being done by those folks. So one of the lessons that we'd like to learn and has been brought up before is that once the hammering or the culling stops, the question is, will the area be self-sustaining? Because as has been mentioned multiple times, the idea here is to try and give the kelp a head start and allow it to naturally sustain itself, as opposed to having human intervention that could last into perpetuity. So as a key component of this, and given all of the work that's been done at Tanker Reef, and the intent from the original design of the regulatory change, which was a 3-year period to give plenty of effort to manage the urchin populations and determine if the kelp could come back, which it has. The next key step in this process is to determine, is it self-sustainable? And you cannot do that if you were to extend it. It must end. You must have time to determine what will happen. And if you can determine that, in fact, the area is self-sustaining, that is going to be invaluable information for part of the kelp restoration management plan for the entire state. If it doesn't sustain itself and the urchins swarm back in, that is also invaluable information in ascertaining whether or not a public effort and a fishing regulatory change is a feasible mechanism to have areas come back. So without that piece of science, we're going to be in the dark, and we're just going to be moving the goalposts down the road and not be able to address that key issue as a part of this monitoring effort that's associated with the regulatory change. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Really helpful comments. A lot to think about. Certainly will inform our discussion in November.